What if I told you that some of the craziest stories in NBA history were never shown to the mainstream? We're not talking about buzzer beaters or championship runs. We're talking about fights that destroyed a potential dynasty. How the greatest team of all time fell off overnight. A story so unbelievable they sound completely made up. But every one of them actually happened. Some of these could have changed the course of NBA history forever. Others were buried before most fans ever found out. Let's dive into the wildest untold stories in NBA history. How would you react if the Golden State Warriors went from having the most dominant season in 2017 to losing in the first round in the following year? And imagine that they would have lost to a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves. Will we question the greatness of that 2017 season? Wouldn't we consider that as one of the most shocking upsets in NBA history? Well, that's what happened to the Philadelphia 76ers in the 1983-84 season. In the previous year, they dominated the NBA. They had two legendary players, Moses Malone and Julius Erving, along with a star-studded supporting cast. They won 65 games, and then they ran through the playoffs by only losing once. This led to many NBA analysts crowning them the greatest team to ever be assembled. But was this all premature? In the following season, they struggled. They won 13 fewer games. Then the playoffs, they lost in the first round to the New Jersey Nets. This was a team that never won a playoff series in the NBA before that season. How was this possible? How could such a strong team fall off so drastically? Many people point to injuries and their aging roster as the main culprits. But I think it goes deeper than that. Consider this. The Sixers starting five missed a combined 29 games in 1984 compared to the 19 games that they missed in 1983. As far as his team being quote-unquote old, they only had two players that were over the age of 30. At the start of the season, Dr. J was 33 and Bobby Jones was 32. On the other hand, Moses Malone was 28, Mo Cheeks was 27, and Andrew Toney was 26. Age had little to do with the team's demise. So what exactly was it? Fortunately, Julius Erving was very upfront and honest with this question that was presented to him. For him, the answer couldn't be more obvious. This is what he mentioned to the New York Times, quote, "Even if we not had suffered the injuries, mentally, there were problems. We had developed bad habits that were directly because of our success last year." End of quote. So the question is, what was causing them to cultivate bad habits after such a successful season? To better understand their mental state, we have to remember what they endured from the moment Dr. J signed with the Sixers in 1976. They reached the finals in 1977, 1980, and 1982. Then they reached the conference finals in 1978 and 1981. There is no other team that was more dominant during those 6 years, and they had nothing to show for it. In essence, winning the title became a quest, and it was not fulfilled until the arrival of Moses Malone. After achieving their goal, Dr. J did not want this team to be complacent. Immediately after winning his first title, he said to reporters, "This isn't the end of a long, cumbersome journey. It's really the beginning." He knew that his team accomplished something special, and they had the potential to win multiple titles. The foundation was there. However, not all of his teammates shared that same mentality. For example, Bobby Jones said to the Washington Post in the middle of the season that they were trying to get back on course, but the playoffs just seemed so far away. That sounds like they were going through the motions and were simply waiting for the playoffs to start. That is a dangerous mentality for any team to have. When you're not playing the regular season with a purpose, you'll find yourself losing games that you're supposed to win. That's what we saw through the course of the season. They lost to the 27-55 Chicago Bulls twice and to the 28-54 Cleveland Cavaliers twice. They also experienced 2 3-game losing streaks and 1 4-game losing streak. But that wasn't the only problem that this team had. Their assistant coach mentioned to the New York Times, quote, "Not only is there more parity, but the other teams are playing us more emotionally this season. But perhaps more importantly, teams are jumping on us earlier, and we're getting down by 13 or so points, and then we have to extend ourselves." End of quote. This team was getting into a bad habit of coasting through games, only to turn it on in the fourth quarter to pull out victories. These are common tendencies with championship winning teams. There are going to be times when the players aren't going to be as motivated to beat teams and to match the energy that everyone else is coming out with to defeat the defending champions. The Sixers were no exception, and they probably relied too much on their stars to win games. In their defense, they mostly stepped up. Julius Erving, Andrew Toney, and Maurice Cheeks increased their scoring average from the previous season. The one player that did not improve was Moses Malone. In fact, he was considered to be a disappointment. The owner of the Sixers mentioned to the Philadelphia Inquirer that Moses was not earning his salary and that he lacked the intensity that he showed in their championship season. The owner said, quote, "Is Moses Malone worth $2 million this year? No. The answer is absolutely no." End of quote. The player that won the regular season MVP and the Finals MVP in 1983 finished 10th in MVP voting in 1984. He would show rare flashes of dominance that season. He was supposed to increase his level of play, with Dr. J turning 34 years old at the start of the postseason. He was supposed to start playing with his newfound confidence and swagger after finally winning a ring while outplaying Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the finals. But that was never showcased. Instead, it seemed like he was also a victim of complacency. Maybe they were just all waiting for the playoffs to start to dominate the NBA once again. They were the second seed in the East and they had the third best record overall. They weren't the same juggernaut that they were in the previous year, but they were still one of the top teams in the league. They were expected to contend for a title and to have a long playoff run. What occurred in the first round series truly shocked the NBA world. Check out what happened in the first two games on their home floor. They lost game 1 by 15 points and game 2 by 14 points. They were on the verge of being swept from the first round, but they avoided disaster by winning the next two games on the road. They were in a prime position to advance to the next round. All they had to do was win a home game. They failed to do so, even while being up by 7 points with less than 7 minutes remaining. They ended up losing the game and the series by 3 points. How were the Nets able to pull out one of the biggest upsets in NBA history? For starters, the Sixers did not match well with New Jersey. In the regular season, they split their season series 3-3. In the prior year, the Sixers dominated every team except two. That was the Boston Celtics and the New Jersey Nets. They also split their season series 3-3. They knew their weaknesses and they knew how to exploit them. The player who broke down their defense the most was Michael Ray Richardson. Even while being guarded by an All-NBA defender, he was able to create for himself and others whenever he pleased. He averaged 20 points on 49% shooting, 8.6 assists, 5.2 rebounds, and 4.2 steals per game for the series. This is just a taste of how great he was during his prime. Lastly, this team was able to knock out the defending champions because it constantly out-hustled them. Power forward Buck Williams went toe-to-toe with Moses and out-rebounded him. He averaged 15.2 rebounds, while Malone averaged 13.8 rebounds. Although their games aren't available online to watch, the Washington Post wrote after the series victory that the Nets gave up their bodies in pursuit of every rebound and loose ball. It was the little things that the Sixers were unwilling to do that made them champions in '83. Dr. J described their defeat perfectly when he said, "This series was just a continuation of what we went through all year." So that leaves us with their 1983 team. Now, I'm not saying that this takes anything away from what they accomplished in that historic season, but what I will say is that every team that's in the running for the greatest team in NBA history title all had dominant seasons in the following year. They didn't always win back-to-back titles, but they were certainly in title contention. The only exception is this team. I don't blame Dr. Julius Erving for the way their season ended, since he was at the tail end of his prime. But I expected a lot more from Moses Malone. From somebody who was a 3-time MVP and a top 20 player of all time, I thought he would exert his dominance a lot more. I understand that he was hurting and he wasn't at 100%, but I don't think that should excuse his performance for the season. The reality is that complacency can affect the most talented teams. The legendary Philadelphia 76ers was no exception to that. This was the perfect opportunity for redemption. This was his chance to answer all his critics and to put his name right in the middle of the GOAT conversation. But he did something that we have never seen by an NBA superstar throughout its entire history. He sabotaged his own career. Before we get to that moment, let's first consider the unique situation that Rick Barry was in. We want to start with the reputation that he had with the league. The fans hated him, the media despised him, and the players had a love-hate relationship with him. They respected his tremendous basketball gifts, but they couldn't say the same about him as a person. Let's be real here. The way a player is viewed around the league has a big impact on the way they get remembered years later. Sometimes the NBA is a popularity contest, and Rick Barry was never getting any love. For some basketball historians, that played a big part in this legend never winning the MVP award. During this time, it was the players that voted for the MVP, not the media. And even when he was averaging over 30 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and nearly 3 steals per game in the 1974-75 season, he finished 4th in the MVP polls. I'm pretty sure his reputation has something to do with him being snubbed from the top 3. There's one more important thing that we need to account for to get the full picture of what we're about to discuss. Rick Barry missed a large chunk of his prime due to the jump he made to the ABA. This happened after his sophomore season. Keep in mind that he just finished leading his team to the finals and winning the scoring title. He averaged 35.6 points in the regular season, and he averaged 40.8 points in the finals against Wilt Chamberlain and the Philadelphia 76ers. He was supposed to be the next great perimeter player that would rival Jerry West for the years to come. But he decided to take his talents to the ABA. This was due to a dispute with the Warriors owner over unpaid incentive monies that he felt he was owed. This video is not about this important event, so I'm not going to go into full detail about this. But here's how this affected his NBA career. He missed 5 years of his prime, and he had to deal with criticism from the public that he was selfish and money hungry. This move made his NBA career resume seem less impressive, and there are those who still view him negatively for this move that he made. But he gained their respect back after the 1974-75 season. He had one of the most historic playoff runs by leading the Golden State Warriors to the championship. What makes his playoff run so impressive is that no one was expecting them to win the title. Although they were the best team in the Western Conference, they only won 48 games. The team that they played in the finals, the Washington Bullets, won 60 games. They were huge underdogs heading into the series, and they ended up sweeping this team. They beat this juggernaut with no one from the Warriors averaging over 12 points for the series other than Rick Barry. That performance validated his career, and there's nothing that we can do or say to take that away from him. But now he had the golden opportunity to put himself in the pantheon of NBA greats. That brings us to the season in question, the 1975-76 season. The Warriors went into the playoffs as the best team in the league. They won 59 games in the regular season, and there was no other team in the West that won over 44 games. They couldn't have asked for a better road to the finals. There was nobody that was at their level. In the conference finals, they faced the Phoenix Suns, who had a 42-40 record. This was supposed to be an easy series victory, and that's what it seemed like at first. They won Game 1 by 25 points. They lost Game 2, but they bounced back in Game 3 by winning 99-91. They seemed to be right on schedule. But check out what happened in Game 4. They had 3 different chances to close out the Suns and take a 3-1 series lead going back to Oakland. The Warriors had a 2-point lead and the ball with 8 seconds left in regulation, only to allow the Suns to force overtime. Missed free throws by Derek Dickey proved to be costly. Then the Warriors had another 2-point lead and the ball with 10 seconds left in the first overtime, only to allow the Suns to force a second overtime. And in the second overtime period, the Suns scored 14 unanswered points to tie the series. This was starting to become interesting. There were doubts that the Warriors could close out the Suns. Unsurprisingly, they destroyed Phoenix in the following game by a margin of 16 points. All they had to do was win one game, and they're back in the finals. This is where everything started. They have a 1-point lead with 14 seconds remaining in the game, and they gave up a layup to Alvin Adams. The good news is that there was still plenty of time for the Warriors to win. The play was drawn for their best player, Rick Barry. He came off a screen, and he was wide open. However, they passed the ball to Jamal Wilkes, and the Suns blocked the shot. They forced the Game 7, and Rick was fuming. How do we know this? 42 years later, he said this.
The ball should have gone to me. I was wide open.
Knowing him, he probably let his teammates know that he should have gotten the ball. Who knows what happened in that locker room? But everything came crumbling down in the biggest game of the series. The way Rick Barry conducted himself in Game 7, with their season and championship hopes on the line, is something that is indefensible. It all started in the first half when he got into a brawl with Ricky Sobers. He was in the middle of a scuffle with none of his teammates by his side. Was this because they were also sick of dealing with his tough personality? Was this a message that they were trying to send to their star teammate? We don't know. What we do know is that Rick Barry hit his breaking point. He responded by going the next 30 minutes without scoring a basket. The media said that he was pouting throughout the game. Rick denies this, of course. But check out what Curry Kirkpatrick reported for Sports Illustrated about that game. He spoke to 3 different players, and this is what they noticed. Gar Hurd said that Barry didn't want to shoot it. Curtis Perry said he never moved for the ball like he does. Dick Van Arsdale said Rick seemed disenchanted. I think he was upset they couldn't blow us out. Your actions and body language always speak louder than your words. And his opponent noticed a difference in him after the fight. He was nowhere near as aggressive as he always was. He finished the game with 20 points on 42% shooting, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists. The Warriors were the better team. There was nobody from the Suns that was even close to being at Barry's level. They were supposed to win that series and face the Boston Celtics in the finals. This was his chance of winning back-to-back titles and finals MVPs. He would have been the first player to accomplish this, and the only player to win 2 consecutive titles in the 70s. But he blew that opportunity for reasons that had little to do with basketball. He chose the worst possible time to give up on his team, even if he thought his reasons were legitimate. He had a lot of enemies on the court, but for this game, he was his own worst enemy. Before the start of the Showtime era in the 1979-80 season, the greatest big man of all time played for the Lakers for 4 seasons. On one hand, he never reached the finals, let alone won a championship. But on the other hand, he won 2 regular season MVPs. So the question is, what is a fair way to evaluate Kareem's time with the Lakers before the arrival of Magic Johnson? Should he be penalized for underachieving, or does he deserve a pass? Before you respond, we're going to evaluate his time there by reviewing the context of each season and the numbers. In the end, you'll have more than enough information to be the judge of this period of Kareem's career that hardly gets talked about. The one thing that we can say about that stretch is that he was as dominant as any player that we've ever seen. I believe he was the best player in the world for each of those years, and he should have won the MVP every year, except for the 1977-78 season. We'll get more into that later, but the numbers that he was recording were nothing short of legendary. Although he wasn't as dominant of a scorer as he was earlier in his career with the Milwaukee Bucks, he put more emphasis on being a more complete player. Let's take a look at his stats. In 1976, he averaged 27.7 points, 16.9 rebounds, which was his career high, 5 assists, and 4.1 blocks per game. No one has come close to touching those numbers. Then the following year, he had one of the greatest MVP seasons of all time. He is still the only player to average over 26 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks for a season. In 1978, Kareem was hurt and he missed 20 games. Despite being limited, he is still the only player to average over 25 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks in a season. Lastly, in 1979, he had one of the greatest all-around seasons by a big man ever. He is the only player to average over 23 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 blocks per game. But wait, we're not done yet. Out of those 4 years, he led the league in PER, win shares per 48 minutes, and value over replacement player rating for each season. He led the league in win shares for 3 seasons. He led the league in blocks twice, and he led the league in rebounds once. As I mentioned, he was clearly the best player in the world for those 4 seasons, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was playing at a historic level. No one should be questioning his individual greatness during that time. But what about the team success portion? Did he do enough to carry his team in the regular season? This is where it gets a little tricky. Let's take, for example, his first year with the Lakers in 1976. Now, I dedicated a whole video talking about this season and the 1975 season a few months ago. To avoid sounding repetitive, I will summarize what I discussed. Kareem became the first and only player to win the MVP while failing to reach the playoffs. Although the Lakers gave up a lot of talent to acquire him, they were still in a position to make the playoffs. However, they had a rough final stretch that took them out of contention. In one of the least competitive seasons in NBA history, he has been criticized for not doing enough to carry the Lakers to at least the playoffs. In fairness to him, that Lakers team was as deep as a kiddie pool. You can even say that they got worse in the following year. But to his credit, they improved by 13 wins and they had the best record in the league. That was solely thanks to Kareem. I think he took that team as far as any player could. There is nothing negative that you could say about him in 1977. But that quickly changed in the following season. In the Lakers' first game, Kareem broke his right hand after punching Milwaukee's Kent Benson in the jaw. He was forced to miss the next 20 games to heal. How much did the Lakers struggle in his absence? They went 8-12. However, the Lakers made some big moves throughout the year that changed the landscape of this team. They drafted point guard Norm Nixon to direct the offense. They added Rookie of the Year Adrian Dantley, and they added Hall of Famers Lou Hudson, Jamal Wilkes, and Charlie Scott. This was no longer a one-man offense. Now they had real expectations to contend for a title. But there was this new narrative that was being pushed by the media that did not make Kareem look good in the eyes of the public. They were claiming that he simply didn't care about playing basketball anymore. For example, Sports Illustrated reported in 1978 that the feeling among those close to the team is that Kareem doesn't care about basketball anymore. They also reported that head coach Jerry West was getting fed up with his passive attitude. But things took a turn for the worse when Wilt Chamberlain decided to speak his mind on his rival. He mentioned to the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner that he's not a great defensive center and that he's had too many subpar years defensively. That only put gas to the fire. At that point, it was a running joke that Kareem didn't play at 100% on both ends of the floor. People just couldn't understand why a player of his caliber, who was in his prime, was not leading his team to dominant seasons. From 1976 to 1979, the Lakers won over 50 games once. So for 1978 and 1979, it seemed like he wasn't pulling his weight, even though he finally had enough talent to win. But here was the reality of the situation. This roster did not complement his game well. They had glaring weaknesses at the power forward position. Most of the players did not care to play any defense, and they were one of the worst rebounding teams in the late 70s. That's considering the fact that Kareem was always one of the top producing rebounders. Jerry West confirmed all of this when he said about his team during the 1979 playoffs, "We're not a super team. We have glaring weaknesses. This team just doesn't complement him at all." But should all of that excuse his performances in the playoffs? Did the Lakers underachieve because it didn't build well around their star player? Or was there some truth to what the media was saying? Did he not try hard enough where they needed him the most? Well, let's take a look at his postseason play from 1977 to 1979. In 1977, he was spectacular. In their first playoff series against the Golden State Warriors, led by Rick Barry, Kareem put the team on his back. The series went to 7 games, and he recorded the highest points per game average for a playoff series in his career. He averaged 37.1 points on 60% shooting, 18.7 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 3.6 blocks, and 2 steals per game. As I mentioned before, he took that team as far as any player could. I think there is no shame in the Lakers getting swept by the Blazers in the conference finals. There was no way that they were deep enough to beat a team that was on its way to winning the title. But what about the next 2 postseasons? In 1978, they lost in the first round to the Seattle Supersonics. According to Sports Illustrated writers, Kareem was not overpowering enough. If you look at the numbers, he was playing at a high level. He averaged 27 points on 52% shooting, 13.7 rebounds, 4 blocks, and 3.7 assists. As great as he played, this was nowhere near the level he was playing at in the previous year, and that was the biggest difference. But if you look at the highlights, the Sonics weren't going to allow that kind of production against him. Every time he touched the ball, they sent 3 to 4 players his way. They were going to force others to beat them, and the plan worked. In the 1979 playoffs, Kareem saved his team for getting bounced from the first round for a second straight year. In the series clinching Game 3, he made this game-winning shot that sent the Denver Nuggets home. Then the following round, the Lakers had no answers for the Sonics once again. They lost the series in 5 games. But what doesn't make Kareem look good is that he was outshined by Gus Williams. He averaged 30 points for the series compared to the 28 Kareem averaged. At this point, the Lakers knew they weren't making the most out of this generational talent. Changes needed to be made, and the 1979 draft truly solved all of their problems. Drafting Magic Johnson was the beginning of the Lakers dynasty that brought Kareem GOAT status. He won 5 more championships, a regular season MVP, and a finals MVP. The next 2 phases of his career were truly remarkable. But do you think it's right that we just shrug off what happened between 1976 to 1979? Was it just a bump in the road, or should this discredit him somewhat? We've seen some impressive seasons from players who were in their rookie year, but there was only one player who came into the league and was undeniably the best in the world. There is only one player who was so dominant in their first year that the league was forced to change the rules to make the game fair for everyone else. He didn't just lead the league in scoring, rebounds, and minutes played. He shattered records. There were 5 total games in which he scored over 50 points. His most impressive performance came against the Detroit Pistons, where he had 58 points and 42 rebounds. There were 27 other games where he scored over 40 points. That includes 4 instances where he posted over 40 points and 40 rebounds. We are talking about numbers that people didn't think were humanly possible to reach at a professional level, but Wilt exposed the league. There is nobody close to having the size or strength to contain him. Bill Russell was the only player who had the mental fortitude to take the beating, but he was still physically overmatched. Just to put it in perspective, Wilt was over 4 inches taller and 60 pounds heavier than Russell. So out of the 12 times that they faced each other, there were 7 times that he scored over 40 points, which included a 53-point performance. If he was putting up numbers like that against him, imagine what he was doing to every other poor soul. Then, on the defensive side, he intimidated all rival teams with his inside presence, just as Bill Russell did. Opponents were forced to pass up easy shots repeatedly because they feared Wilt would spike the ball out of the arena. He was the biggest cheat code that a team can have, so it should be no surprise that the Warriors improved by 17 wins in his first season there. However, he didn't just change the fortunes of his team, he changed the landscape of the sport. For example, the league banned offensive goaltending because Wilt could jump over the top of the rim and guide the ball to the basket. Then there was a rule that players had to release the ball behind the foul line when attempting a free throw. Seems like common sense now, but the rule had to be implemented because Wilt had the physical ability to take off from the free throw line and either dunk it or lay it in. The league knew it had to do something to avoid making everyone else look bad. That's not good for business. But on the other hand, he quickly became the league's main attraction for his world-class abilities. That is definitely good for business. According to Sports Illustrated, he drew 500,000 new fans into NBA arenas single-handedly, and in one season, he made basketball a paying attraction for people who, before he appeared, wouldn't have attended a game with complimentary tickets. That is a direct quote. They later mentioned that Wilt was as valuable to the sport as Babe Ruth was to baseball. There's never going to be another player who will have that kind of impact on a sport in their first year than what Wilt Chamberlain did. By the end of the season, the Philadelphia Warriors won 49 games, which was the second best record. He won the Rookie of the Year and the MVP. He's only the second player to accomplish this feat along with Wes Unseld. The numbers he recorded were nothing short of spectacular. He averaged 37.6 points and 27 rebounds per game. That is currently the second highest rebounds per game and the fifth highest points per game average for a single season. Keep in mind that before 1960, no one had been able to average over 30 points per game. In the playoffs, Wilt was able to continue playing at a historic level. There were 2 games where he scored over 50 points. One came in the series-deciding game against the Syracuse Nationals, and the other against the Boston Celtics. However, the Warriors weren't deep enough to defeat the 2-time defending champions. Wilt's greatness alone wasn't going to be enough. He was so frustrated with the results that he announced that he was going to quit the sport. This was something that brought a lot of negative attention to his mentality. The owner of the Warriors even came out and said that he wasn't surprised with this decision. In his sophomore year in Kansas, he did the exact same thing. When they lost the NCAA championship game, he announced that he would quit playing basketball. Instead of celebrating the historic year that he had, he was being crushed for being a sore loser. This was the start of the love-hate relationship he had with the media. Wilt came off a rookie season where he was clearly the best player in the world and he had the greatest individual season ever. Now he has set the bar to an impossible standard. The expectation was that he needed to produce record-breaking numbers every single game. He came back in his sophomore year and did exactly that. In 35 out of the 79 games that he played, he scored over 40 points. In only 3 of those instances, he pulled down less than 20 rebounds. That includes 8 games where he scored over 50 points. For example, against the Los Angeles Lakers, he posted the outrageous stat line of 56 points on 54% shooting and 45 rebounds. Believe it or not, that is only an honorable mention for the best games he had that year. His season high in points came against the New York Knicks when he had 67 points on 73% shooting and 31 rebounds. Only Wilt would be capable of scoring over 60 points and pulling down over 30 rebounds. On top of that, he recorded the 6th most efficient 60-point game ever. If you think that's impressive, he had the greatest rebounding game. In the first regular season matchup against the Celtics, he went for an NBA record, 55 rebounds along with 34 points. Wilt nearly out-rebounded the Celtics by himself as they finished with 59 boards. He dominated his rival, Bill Russell, on the glass, and he was limited to only 19 rebounds. When he was asked about the record-breaking performance years later, he said this, quote, "The thing that I remember most about the 55 rebounds was when the game was over, that I was probably more tired than I've ever been in my entire life." End of quote. The numbers don't lie. He was once again the best player in the world by a considerable margin. He led the league in points and rebounds again. He averaged 38.4 points and 27.2 rebounds per game. That is the highest rebounds per game average for a single season ever and the 3rd highest points per game average. This played a huge part in the Warriors finishing with the 3rd best record in the NBA. But in the playoffs, they couldn't even pull out a victory against the Syracuse Nationals. They were swept 3-0. You couldn't blame Wilt for that. he stayed up to par with his regular season averages. His teammates, on the other hand, were cultivating the bad habit of relying too much on Chamberlain to win games. The New York Times called their play after the series lethargic. In Game 3, Tom Gola and Paul Arizin fouled out in the final minutes, leaving Wilt to win the game by himself. This did not leave a good impression with the rest of the league, and he was slighted big time when the players had him 4th in MVP voting. Maybe some of that had to do with the Warriors ending with fewer victories than the previous year. Maybe they were penalizing him for the way their season ended. Or maybe he just fell short of the impossible expectations that everyone had for him. Maybe they thought that if he was truly the best player in the world, shouldn't his team also have the best record? There's nothing on record that explains the reasoning behind that decision. All we can do is speculate, but we can draw the conclusion that the world expected him to be perfect. I can assure you that the expectations they had for the second place MVP finalist, Bob Pettit, were not the same as what they had for Wilt. And when he didn't reach them, they made him pay for missing out on these type of awards. But if they wanted more, then they were going to get their wish in the following season when he decided to rewrite the history books. They were the first of their kind. The league had never seen a front line like theirs, two ultra-talented 7-footers. But the 1986 Houston Rockets were much more than the Twin Towers. This team was loaded with talent. They were dubbed the future of the NBA. Many basketball experts believed they would win multiple titles. The 1986 season was no fluke. They were on their way to legitimate greatness. It all started in the 1983 offseason. After ending the Moses Malone era, it was time to rebuild. There was no better way to start than by receiving the #1 pick in the draft, and they selected the 7'4" Ralph Sampson from the University of Virginia. This was unlike any player the basketball world had ever seen. Despite his size, he was extremely mobile and a dangerous outside threat. On top of that, he was a great playmaker and rim protector. Those skills were showcased immediately. In his rookie season, there was a game against the Chicago Bulls where he had 13 blocks along with 28 points, 18 rebounds, and 5 assists. That was just a taste of what this guy was capable of doing. But just when they thought their future couldn't be any brighter, they landed the #1 pick for the second consecutive year. The 1984 draft is considered by many as the greatest in league history. There were so many options to choose from. They drafted Houston's own Hakeem Olajuwon. The Rockets decided to give this team a look that nobody had ever seen before. They now had 2 star 7-footers. The Twin Towers concept was considered a big deal. There was no team that thought of playing 2 centers at the same time, but the Rockets saw an opportunity to have a huge size advantage. In their first year together, they had tremendous success and increased their win total by 19 games. The chemistry between these two giants was phenomenal. Hakeem had the body and ability to play the more traditional center role, and that allowed Sampson to use his unique set of skills to thrive in other aspects of the game. He preferred to play away from the basket, to hit open teammates with his precision passing, and to utilize his athleticism to create shots for himself. His style of play was considered unorthodox, but that's what made this duo so special. The Rockets had 2 of the most skilled and athletic bigs in the game. Once the 1985-86 season got rolling, they were one of the top duos in the league. Hakeem presented another set of problems for his opponents. Boston Celtics coach K.C. Jones mentioned during the season what made Hakeem so tough to guard. He said, if he gets the ball anywhere in the paint, it's just like a layup. And he's so quick that you can't guard him with just one man because he's liable to get into foul trouble, and they go to him even more. End of quote. This version of Hakeem ran the floor with abandon. There's no way the centers of the league could keep up, and if they wanted to slow it down, Hakeem already possessed a multitude of low post moves. But their offensive skills weren't the only reason why they were so special. It was their defense. With those 2 guarding the middle, they controlled the paint as well as any team that you can think of. They combined for 22.3 rebounds and 4.7 blocks per game. Every team had to adjust to playing against 2 7-footers, and they gave everyone problems. What are teams supposed to do when Ralph Sampson gives a performance like he did against the Dallas Mavericks? He had 38 points on 49% shooting, 15 rebounds, 4 blocks, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Then Hakeem comes and gives the Warriors 34 points on 76% shooting, 22 rebounds, 7 blocks, 5 assists, and 4 steals. Every game, they were doing something extraordinary. Their chemistry was something to behold. It was as Robert Reed mentioned in Sports Illustrated, this is the Twin Towers team. Can't say Ralph without Dream, can't say Dream without Ralph. That statement was very true, but they didn't do it alone. They also had the ultra-talented point guard, John Lucas. He was a phenomenal scorer and a great ball distributor. Take, for example, what he did against the Sacramento Kings that season. He had 20 points on 75% shooting, 17 assists, and 0 turnovers. The award-winning columnist Bob Ryan went as far as to say that there is no doubt in his mind that he could have put together a Hall of Fame resume. That's how special of a player he was. Then there was Lewis Lloyd, aka Black Magic. When he was on the open court, he was unstoppable. He is easily one of the most underrated bucket getters. How else would you describe a player who averaged 52.5% from the field for their career? In 1986, there were 26 games in which he shot over 60%. His season high in points came against the Cavaliers. He scored 38 points on 65% shooting. Then there was Rodney McCray, who seemed to do everything well. He was a good shooter, great passer, underrated rebounder, and he has 2 All-NBA defensive team selections to his name. Lastly, they had 2 veterans who were with the team when they reached the finals in 1981. That was Robert Reed and Alan Level. Their experience helped this team tremendously. This was a deep team. It's no wonder that they won 51 games. This was the Rockets' first 50-win season since entering the league in San Diego back in 1967. They had the second best record in the West. They had a successful regular season, but there's no question that they left some victories on the board. For starters, Hakeem suffered a sprained ligament in his left knee against the Los Angeles Clippers, and he had to miss a full month. The Rockets were 7-7 during that span. Then there was this scary injury that Ralph suffered. Against the Boston Celtics, he fell on his lower back while going for a rebound. It was reported that he suffered temporary paralysis in his right leg. You can even see his hand trembling from the fall. He only missed 3 games from this injury, but little did he know that the effects of this injury would haunt him for the rest of his career. This was only the beginning of Houston's downfall. With less than 20 games left in the season, John Lucas was kicked out of the team. This was a player who was told that he would never play for the Houston Rockets in the previous year after abusing the Devil's dandruff. But after completing rehab, he changed the team's mind. He was given another opportunity. Unfortunately, he relapsed. He failed the drug test. They knew they needed him if they wanted a chance at winning the title, but his well-being was far more important. They urged him to get help. The good news is that he ultimately turned his life around and defeated this battle. But this meant that the Rockets were going to have to continue on without their floor general. That is when Alan Level stepped up, and he was filling the void perfectly. But to add insult to injury, he got hurt with 5 games remaining in the regular season. That means they were entering the playoffs without a point guard. How is his team going to respond? They put the ball in Robert Reed's hands. This was not his natural position, but he did a great job of getting others involved in filling the scoring gap. In the first round against the Sacramento Kings, he had an inspiring performance in Game 2. He posted a team-high 29 points on 48% shooting, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, and 3 steals. They were able to sweep the Kings, and Allen was able to return for the second-round series against the Denver Nuggets. This is when Hakeem Olajuwon started earning the reputation of being one of the league's greatest playoff performers. In Game 1, he had 38 points on 67% shooting, 16 rebounds, 6 steals, 5 blocks, and 4 assists. Did you know that there have only been 3 times in playoff history that a player has posted over 5 blocks and 5 steals? 2 of those times came in this series. Hakeem did it again in Game 3. He had 31 points on 53% shooting, 11 rebounds, 7 blocks, 5 steals, and 2 assists. But the Denver Nuggets offense was too much. They were able to tie the series at 2 apiece. That's when the Twin Towers gave their finest performance ever. Hakeem went for 36 points on 54% shooting, 19 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 assists, and 1 steal. Ralph went for 33 points on 59% shooting, 17 rebounds, 10 assists, 5 blocks, and 2 steals. It's one of the greatest games from a duo that you'll ever see. Game 6 was a certified classic. They went to double overtime, with each team trading big buckets. Rockets fans remember this for different reasons. Hakeem was thrown out of the game in the 4th quarter. Then Sampson fouled out in the first overtime. That is when the role players stepped up. Mitchell Wiggins was huge. Even Granville Waiters was able to step up. And of course, both Lewis Lloyd and Allen Level took over. This was the ultimate proof that this team was more than just the Twin Towers. They surely gave them the confidence needed to face their next opponent. That was the Showtime Lakers. This was the defending champions. This was a team that won 62 games. They represented the West in the finals in 5 of the last 6 seasons. After Game 1, it looked like they were going to make it 6 out of 7. But the Rockets were looking to repeat what they did to this team in 1981, and that was to shock the world. The Lakers had the experience and the depth, but there was one clear advantage the Rockets had: their size. In Game 2, the Twin Towers dominated with their defense. They combined for 11 blocks and 5 steals. Kareem, one of the most efficient scorers in league history, was contained at 35% shooting. They stole Game 2, and when they returned to Houston, that is when Hakeem decided to take over. He knew that the 39-year-old Kareem could do nothing to stop him. In Game 3, he torched the old man with 40 points on 50% shooting, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals. This wasn't just a one-game sample. He dominated the Lakers all series long. He averaged 31 points on 52% shooting, 11.2 rebounds, 4 blocks, and 2.2 steals per game. This was his message to the NBA world. He was going to be a problem for the years to come. Thanks to his play, they had a 3-1 series lead. The Lakers needed to do something about him. That is when Mitch Kupchak decided to take the ultimate sacrifice. He pestered him all game long until he finally had enough. Hakeem got himself ejected for the 2nd time in this playoff run. But the Rockets knew what they were capable of without their star players. They immediately went to work. This was the original Clutch City, as they made one big shot after another. Sampson scored 10 of the last 13 points down the stretch. But nothing was bigger than this iconic moment with 1 second remaining in the game.
Get a shot off. Sampson. It goes. It's over.
Michael Cooper's reaction says it all. It was one of the most shocking endings to a game, a series, and a season. Ralph Sampson converted on one of the biggest shots in NBA history. They were on their way to the finals. The team that was waiting was the Boston Celtics. We're talking about what many consider as the greatest team ever. The Rockets might have had the Twin Towers, but the Celtics had a skyline of giants that included Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, and Bill Walton. Then there was Larry Bird, who won his 3rd consecutive MVP award. It was going to take more than size to beat this team. Since they weren't at full strength, they were going to need a miracle if they wanted to win this series. To their credit, they showed a lot of fight. They pulled out a gutsy performance in Game 3 as they won by 2 points. Then in Game 5, they gave them their 2nd largest defeat of their historic season. They won by 15 points. But there's a good kind of fight, and then there's the bad kind. Ralph Sampson learned the hard way that you don't make that team and that fan base mad. In Game 6, there was hatred in the air. The Boston Garden targeted one man and one man only. Playing in that environment surely had something to do with him finishing with 8 points on 4 of 12 shooting. They still had some growing up to do, but there was going to be plenty of time for that. After the type of season they had, it was only a matter of time before they started winning titles for the city of Houston. Unfortunately, everything crumbled apart shortly after this. The NBA banned Lewis Lloyd and Mitchell Wiggins for life after testing positive for drug use in 1987. They eventually played in the NBA again after missing 2 seasons. Then Ralph Sampson suffered a major knee injury against the Nuggets. Instead of taking the year off, he came back 6 weeks after receiving major surgery. He was never the same after that. he was eventually traded in the 1987-88 season. But in 1986, we got a glimpse of what they could have accomplished. If the Showtime Lakers suffered a gentleman's sweep and that Boston Celtics team had problems against them, then you know they were on their way to something special. No, this didn't come from a modern day player. No, this didn't come from any of the talking heads looking to make headlines. And no, this didn't come from someone who played in that era who was looking to exact revenge on their rival one last time. We're talking about someone who exposed one of the NBA's most legendary players from the 60s while he was still playing. Before we start, I must put the disclaimer. For those who are looking to throw hands from the title of the video, I'm not here to trash that era of basketball. In fact, I have tons of tribute videos from players of the pre-merger. I'm just a messenger. All I'm doing is presenting to you the information, and we can have a deeper discussion about this in the comments. As always, I welcome everyone to express their opinions. The player that was thrown under the bus was Bob Pettit. For many people, he holds the title of the most underrated player in all of basketball history. Here's a brief summary of his extensive Hall of Fame resume. He's a two-time MVP winner. He won a title against Bill Russell and the Boston Celtics, which was the only time he ever lost in the finals. He's an 11-time All-Star. He has 11 All-NBA selections. He led the league in scoring twice. He's also one of the few players to rack up over 20,000 career points and 10,000 rebounds. His greatness is unquestionable. There is no debate that he's one of the top players from the late 50s to mid 60s. But would a player with that kind of resume be accused of not being one of the superstars in basketball? Well, that's exactly what happened. And it came from someone who had no business saying such negative things about this player. This came from the owner of the St. Louis Hawks, Ben Kerner. Before I reveal exactly what he said to Sports Illustrated, let's review the events that transpired leading up to the start of the 1962-63 season so we can have a better understanding of where he was coming from. From 1957 to 1961, the Hawks reached the finals 4 times out of those 5 years. They even won the title in 1958. By all calculations, they were the second best team for those 5 years, behind only the Boston Celtics. Then in the 1961-62 season, Bob Pettit had his best statistical year. He recorded the highest scoring average of his career. He posted 31.1 points and 18.7 rebounds per game. He only missed 2 games that season. The Hawks' second best player, Cliff Hagan, was arguably a top 10 player in the league. He averaged 22.9 points on 47% shooting, 8.2 rebounds, and 4.8 assists per game. He finished 8th in points, field goal percentage, and assists. He only missed 3 games. With those 2 players healthy and recording great numbers, you would think they would be in a prime position to contend for a title again. Except the exact opposite happened. They finished the season going 29-51, which was tied for the second worst record in the NBA. It was a total shock that this team dropped off so badly to everyone, except one person. That was Ben Kerner. Here's what he said to Sports Illustrated in the fall of 1962 when asked about his big 3, Bob Pettit, Cliff Hagan, and Clyde Lovellette, and the team's struggles. Quote, "They are good players. They won me 5 division championships. Can I knock that? But these days, you must have superstars in basketball. These players aren't superstars, and they never were, no matter what people thought." He continues saying, "So now people come to me and they say, what's wrong? Hagan can't play defense. Clyde can't run. Pettit can't handle the ball. What happened? Nothing has happened. You think Hagan could ever play defense? You think Clyde was ever a carryback? Last year, we were fining him $25 every time he didn't get back to midcourt. Those 3 are playing as well today as they did when we won. Maybe better. Other things have happened." End of quote. He mentioned other things have happened. What was he referring to? He was referring to the void they had at the point guard position. They lost John McCarthy in retirement, and his replacement Lenny Wilkens played all but 20 games. They suffered big time without having someone to bring the ball up the court. In fact, Ray Cave, sports writer of Sports Illustrated, called this team the dinosaurs of the NBA because of how slowly they brought the ball up the court. Without a respectable floor general, this team was getting run off the floor. Not even the greatness of Bob was enough to salvage this team. As a side note, this team got back on course once Lenny Wilkens returned to the lineup. But for the owner of the Hawks, he wasn't considered the type of talent to carry a team on his back. That's something that players such as Wilt and Oscar Robertson were able to do for their teams on a yearly basis. Elgin Baylor and Jerry West also could carry a team for periods whenever their co-star was hurt. Bill Russell could do the same with his defense alone. But did Bob Pettit need a team full of talent to succeed? Although he was an incredibly hard-working player, his talent level seemed to have always been in question. Most famously, Bill Simmons quoted the award-winning sports writer Bob Ryan in his book of basketball, and he mentioned that he couldn't dunk unless a donut and coffee were involved. So if that was the case, then how come he dominated in an era full of legendary players? Does this speak badly for the NBA in the 60s? That a player who could barely touch the rim was averaging nearly 30 points and 20 rebounds per game? Here is my take on this matter. Just like any era, the NBA had A-list stars that I have high regard for. It's the next tier of players that I have some issues with. Take for example the 1961-62 season. There were only 113 players in the league. Compare that to the 517 players that have suited up this year. Now you would think that a league with so few players would mean that the teams were full of talent, but that wasn't the case. I would say that half of these players were nothing special. A player like Bob Pettit can absolutely dominate a team like the Chicago Packers, who had the 6'7" Woody Salisbury as their starting power forward. I believe he benefited from playing in that era. I also believe that Bob Pettit wasn't in the same class as players such as Russell, Wilt, Elgin, West, and Oscar. For me, they're all somewhere in my top 20 players of all time. I personally have Pettit just outside the top 30. I think that's what the owner of the Hawks was trying to say more than anything. If that's the case, then I agree with him. If he hinted that he was overrated, then who am I to argue with him? He saw this guy play more than anyone else. But what about you all? Do you think those comments he said about his player were fair, or was it the harsh truth? How do you think we should view Bob Pettit in that era of basketball? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.